I had a half-cocked idea is the problem here. The full idea is that we never said, I don't think, in this podcast that it was just you and I.
Yeah.
And not that anybody cares and is going to expect another person, but there's no one else there. So before you get into this podcast, just know you're going to hear Colin and I talk way more than we do during the intro. Because the intro, like, I think we're always given like the inside baseball in the intro when we're doing it.
Yeah.
But like it's our time after the podcast usually that we've like already talked about what's happened and what we're gonna, what we're gonna do, what's next, all those kinds of things. And so it sometimes is dry, I think, because we just don't have a lot to talk about anymore. This time though, like the whole podcast is just that. It's just us talking. It's one big intro, essentially. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We talk about we talk about current vehicle state, upcoming trip, new car stuff again.
A little slight rehashing of the new truck stuff.
Yep, a little slight rehashing of the new truck stuff, which it's not going to be the last time, if we're honest, because
No. I mean, there's new trucks coming out all the time.
there are new trucks coming out all the time. Someone's going to come back on here and complain about the information that we gave because they're going to bring in a motor trend instead of a car and driver.
Yeah,
and
so as
be
you listen
0.1
to
seconds off.
comment your arguments
please.
in the comments, and then we can just rehash it from there too.
And if you have an opinion that differs from mine, make sure to say it because I'm not paying attention. I'm not going to look at those
Yeah,
comments.
I'll
Colin
call
will.
him out. I'll call him out big time on that.
Colin will, but I just, I will say that that was a long pause.
Yeah.
I said it in the podcast, but we had a lot of comments on the last podcast on YouTube, and it was awesome. As much as I complain and say that I won't look at the comments, I definitely read all of them.
See? Drug you in.
These ones were really good, and it's because we had a really good guest, and so whatever. Good shout out to Ryan again.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so I didn't say it. Welcome to the Campfire Passport podcast. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Colin, you got anything else for us?
I was just trying to get a longer pause than you had that last time, but no,
All right.
I've got nothing. Just you cover everything so well, Sean. It's really, you put me in a spot that is really difficult to just like follow up on.
You know what? Next time I'll feed you some info.
Yeah,
So you can
give me a little. Otherwise, I'm just I'm totally in the dark.
I just really enjoy your comment here. This is my favorite comment of the year so far. Nothing quite like hauling your tent on your roof so you can set it up on the ground.
Yep.
That is great. I made the joke about it being a rooftop tent, like the dad joke of the Oz tent being the rooftop tent. It didn't land, but
I mean, I got it.
okay.
I laughed.
Thanks. More power to him. It's going to be fun. My tent is fine, and it's not the best tent in the world, but it is my tent, and I sleep in it, and it's good.
Well, I still have
I know.
an extra one. Matter of fact, I have 2 extras. You can choose which style you want.
There's 2 different styles?
Yeah.
You have the pop up.
Because I
don't
have
want
that straight pop up or
Yeah.
the mount hood.
I want the one that's like what I've got, but different.
Yeah.
What's your trade-in policy?
I don't really have one.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah. Unfortunately for you, anyway.
Yeah, unfortunately for me.
Yeah.
I think that rooftop tents that are on the market, there's a lot, and the market's gotten like super saturated.
Yes.
I've noticed recently. I think from the outside looking in, at least without doing a lot of research, just putting my hands on them, seeing them at events and things, the 23-0 stuff looks really good. And they have a pretty wide variety of stuff, and I think that there's pretty good stuff. I mean, it seems like it's high quality. It seems like it's moderately priced. It's not the most expensive, but it's not the cheapest. So I think they've kind of slotted into a good spot. CVT has just kind of fallen off, it seems. They exist for sure.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't seem like they've really done anything for a little bit ever since the buyout stuff and the, getting put into the conglomerate, basically.
Yeah.
Free Spirit has got some stuff. They seem to be like trying a little more. And I still think the GFC tent is really compelling. I think it's cool. I think it's the slimmest without having no storage. And I am broken record about this around everybody, but opaque top is really cool to me because I don't like living in a cave. I really would like to I don't want to be baked in the summer. I get that, but like at the same time, I'd like a little bit of light when it's 6 a.m. or whatever and the sun's coming up because I'm going to get up anyways.
Right.
And I'd rather not wake up in the dark. So what I do is I keep a window open, and that pretty much just solves that problem most of the time. And my tent is super insulated, and it's great for when it's cold. But I hate it being so dark. So
yeah. I think some of that is your gray, the color of, because you've got one of the plastic or fiberglass or whatever versions it's gray. And so I think that has a pretty big effect on it, because I know that my white tent, which is the same construction, it just opens different, right?
Yeah.
That white roof, it lets in light totally fine, and like the insulation on it is white also.
Oh, maybe that's part of it.
And so it's like you said, like it's not like opaque like the GFC is, which is like you can see the light inside the tent in the dark, but it is thin enough that like it does let in plenty of light. Like I have definitely noticed that.
Mine, it can be like sunny outside, and you can close yourself up in there and not be able to see. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Which is what I imagine the new metal mount hoods are probably exactly the same way, because they're a solid piece. Yeah. So,
well, dang. It's one of those.
It's
things.
One of those balances.
Yeah,
it's hard to say if you'll ever actually get the perfect balance, because who knows? Because as you haven't used a GFC, so you don't know what you will be giving up in order to get that gain that you're looking for.
Yep.
So,
I'm sure there'll be something.
Yeah.
Vehicle-specific roof mounts are pretty cool too. That's like the other thing that I would pay for there that I think you're getting, is especially if you've got like a 4Runner or an 80 series, or I don't know what else they have mounts for, but other vehicles.
Well, there's that, but then at the same time, it also has everything has to be specific to GFC.
Yeah.
They have a proprietary
that's kind of a
rail
silly
system
thing that they did.
So you have to pay for their bolts that are not cheap.
Yeah, we just went over that a while back. That's a weird thing that they did, especially for a company that's like, they actually do a really good job at promoting people that make accessories for their product,
their tents,
right? Which is actually kind of cool. And so it's a little bit disappointing that they don't have a universal piece. I just saw they had it was an Instagram story or something, a reel that they had that was explaining, that they don't use like that 80/20 material or whatever, the scaffolding stuff.
Yeah, and the extruded.
Yeah, and
extruded
you shouldn't
body
be using
it
for tents and blah blah blah. And okay, they have a point. I'm sure that they know way more than I do about it. So it's whatever. So.
I mean, that's fine that they don't use it. I don't know that I've seen a ton of tent manufacturers that do. It's just that like most of the tents that have that external track on it have a specific size that is for a bolt head to just go in. So you can just use a bolt head, where theirs, the way they're manufacturing it, is specific to their manufactured bolts. And maybe it's that whole that claim to be 100% U.S. made.
Sure.
But it's like you get to a point where you've taken it too far. Like, we're going to manufacture the bolts, and like, I'm sure it's a money maker for them, obviously. Like, course, why not? But it's like, we didn't need to add this additional step that then is now an additional cost for not only the consumer, but for them too, because it's going to cost them time and money for making these proprietary pieces that don't need to be proprietary.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're probably right. I mean, I don't think that I get it from like a business standpoint and from like the manufacturing side where you want it all to be one, done in house, and then two, you want it to, be a moneymaker, right? They're in business to make money. They're not in business to give tents away or hardware, and that's great. But like, there is also that like, if it's not broken, don't fix it thing. And like, okay, well, I don't know. And in the R&D process, I'm sure this has come up. I'm sure that anybody that is part of that process that would listen to this would just be like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? But from our side, from the dumb consumer side, I look at a problem like that and I go, okay, well, you made a T-bolt thing that is good, but like a regular thing existed already.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it better? And I've never heard anybody tell me why. So they're not marketing it that way. They're just doing it. Yeah. So, good, bad, indifferent. I'm not sure. That's a weird one. What got us on tents? Why did I start talking about that?
Well, because you keep talking about how you want to upgrade
your
tent.
because I want yours. Yeah. Well, because I want to upgrade mine. It's like it's one of those things that like, there's a long list of things I need to do. And then I sprinkle in things like that where I'm like, you know what? I should get a new tent this year. I'm like, no, I mean,
you have been saying that for...
It's been like 2 or 3 years.
3? Yeah. It's got to be.
But you know what the best part about that 2 or 3 year time frame is that my tent's been great.
I mean, at least it's worked.
There's no problems. So I don't know. I might just ride it until the wheels fall off, as they say.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's ugly now too because it's outdated. But like we were saying, it doesn't really like it's not an aesthetic thing. It's just on there.
Yeah.
And who cares, basically. But aesthetically, I would rather have a GFC with roof clamp gutters that are the right size for my rig. That way it would sit down low, and then they're long. It's like the same length as my roof, basically. So that's cool, but it's not 100% necessary. Yeah. So speaking of that, we have a trip coming up, and I know all of our friends, including you, are feverishly getting their rigs ready. Yeah. I am not. I pulled my bug into the garage and started taking it apart instead because that's what I do. I do have some things that are on the list that are achievable and some that I may or may not get to. But you have a whole new rig. So like you're in it, right? Why don't you explain some of the things you've run into and what you have since, I guess we did talk about in like the last podcast, or not the last podcast at all, a few podcasts ago, that you got what year is it? 18? Oh, I'm good. 18 Colorado ZR2.
Yeah. That is what color, Sean?
It's blue.
False.
It's gray. It's gray, but it's a grayish blue. So I just looked at it in the sun, and if you ask me what color your truck is,
which I just did,
I might say blue, honestly.
I can't see that. I don't know how you see that, but
I actually, this is not a crutch, okay, so this is not an excuse, but I do have a little bit of trouble with black and blue in like colors. So like I'm not colorblind at all, but black and blue, especially dark blue and black together, I have a really hard time deciphering which one's which.
Okay, so what color are the blankets on our walls?
They're black. No, they're dark blue. But there is black ones up there.
There are black ones on the ceiling, yeah.
When I look at it just right, they're not different colored.
So that means your shirt also is confusing for you?
Yeah, it's just brown and blue. Yeah, pretty much.
Huh.
Yeah, it's a weird thing that I ran into over the last few years. This has come up. It's like we would get cars in the shop before that would be like super, super dark blue. And I'd have to ask people like, is that blue? Because I think it looks like a really dark blue, and I like really dark blue things.
Yeah.
But I also like black things, so it's kind of a weird, I don't know, it's a stupid thing. But anyways, I digress.
Okay.
What kind of problems are you running into with your blue truck?
That I don't have.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, I did recently find out that I once again can only, any time that I've had a vehicle with a tailgate,
Yeah.
I've had, I mean, as far as rigs go, I've had like, a mini truck or whatever, but as far as rigs go, every time I have a tailgate, so 3 vehicles now, not once has the tailgate opened completely flat. And so I have to contend with this angled upward slightly tailgate for anything that is a potential, a slide or a drawer or whatever out of the back of it. And it's really annoying because, for one, I kind of just assumed
Yeah, it's not something I would have looked at.
right, that it would have been fine. But yeah, so now it's either I have to angle something to a certain extent so that it would clear as it comes open, or just prop it up.
Yeah. And you're thinking about like bed slide stuff, right? Like not just a fridge slide.
Correct. Yeah, I would like to do like a full bed slide, tray slide, essentially. And so the issues that I run into they're compounding because I have 2 kids, and with 2 kids, and the lack of desire I have after having a giant roof tent to deal with that.
Yeah.
And switching to a smaller, easy to open tent, such as a CVT mount hood, just a little clamshell, or the tent that I had before that. That means the kids have to have their own space. And so I'm going to put them in the bed of the truck. And so in order for them to feel like they have space, they have to be at a certain height inside there underneath the canopy.
Got it.
So then that means I only have so much space from the floor to the bottom of that bed in order to fit things, which I've been like systematically picking out components as far as like fridges and boxes and things like that will fit underneath there. And I already had that lack of height space that has now been crunched even more by the tray potentially needing to be lifted up a couple of inches,
Yeah.
So it's just like there's all of these things that are just continually adding up. And luckily I have a pretty okay buffer that I can still work with, but it's still like a massive annoyance. And if there's anything that, I'm sure that there's plenty of things that Chevy got wrong with this truck, but
colors are confusing for one.
But I don't see how a tailgate sitting completely flat is too much to ask. Yeah, I don't know how that even happens or gets ignored, or I don't get it, because any other truck I've seen, granted, I haven't put a level on everybody's truck to check it.
Yeah.
But like, it seems like a pretty simple thing, and a lot of things that I've seen, like, say for a Tacoma, I know that they open completely flat. So,
one side question: doesn't Decked make storage drawers for those? Mike had one of those. Do they not? Do they only pull out to the end of the tailgate or something?
No, they pull out all the way, but because of the frame that they're sat in, the bottom of the drawer itself sits up just high enough that it can come through.
It clears. Oh, okay.
And so same thing with because they have a cargo, like a tray cargo glide, I think is what they call it. But the problem there is that the way that has a frame that mounts to everything, it raises the deck height by 4.5 inches.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And so that cuts into your bed space.
Cuts into my bed space so much that I can't fit the fridge under there. Even like a really short fridge like I have, it won't fit. It'll put it at the bed rail height, and my bed rail height is taller than Tacoma's and multiple other trucks. So it's like I'm working with as much space as I can, basically, and it's still like that cuts into it too much. Otherwise, I would have just fucking bought one of those. Like it's such a simple, and it's going to carry all the weight. Yeah. But and it might be. No, they're probably short enough, because the other thing that I'm doing is I'm putting an upright water tank up against the cab in there. So that cuts another 3 inches out of my bed depth.
Yeah.
Essentially. So like not all the tray slides are, some of them are too long at that point, basically. So like that's the other thing. So it's just, like I said, everything is compounding, and I'm just having to find like each little alleyway that I can run down to make things work, hopefully. So.
Yeah, that's rough. I mean, that planning stage of the build is such a pain in the ass already, and then when you decide,
and then when it's rushed,
exactly.
When I like have a very short window of time, which, like I said, again, because I've done this to myself 2 years in a row now, and it's only been so counting last year. Well, I can't count last year, so I only had like a 3-year span where it was like where I was using the same vehicle.
Yeah.
And then I decided to start over. But at the same time, it's like before our first trip, it's always like that. We're all always like, oh, well, before this year of trips, I'd like to get X, Y, and Z upgraded.
Yeah,
so like
naturally you start a month before.
Yeah, it's just that I'm starting completely over, not just like doing a couple upgrades, you know? So that makes it a little more difficult.
I'm lucky that I haven't really changed much. So, well, I mean, an entire drivetrain. But other than that, like camp gear wise, you know, that it's all been done. So I'm not super concerned about it. I am a little concerned about a couple things. It's not anything crazy, but like I have this axle stuff that's like a recurring theme that I'm trying to get through. And I still have a couple loose ends on my swap that are not like, I can drive it around. I drove it on the Waihi trip, like all those things. But I got stuck in this holding pattern on getting it fully set. And so like that's been a thorn in my side that I've been trying to deal with. And so it'll be fine. I got to put a fan shroud on it. Although I don't think it's going to be hot enough that it's going to matter. I mean, I assume it's not going to be hot at all. It'd be nice if it was, but it's not going to be. So whatever. But I did have that problem when we were on the Waihi trip where it got a little hot on me because I don't have a shroud. And never does it otherwise. It's totally fine. But that trip, it got just a little warm. So, but yeah, no rebuild stuff. So that's good.
That is good.
Does anybody else have a full, I guess Jesse kind of, because Jesse's like evolved his camp setup. Mike kind of evolved his. Tyson full change.
Yeah.
Jesse also is redoing a lot of his rig, not all of it. I mean, he's not like redoing everything, but he's redoing his camp setup, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then Mike, kind of similar. Mike's always tinkering, and it's not really that far out of the norm for him to be scrambling shit together at the last minute. No, I guess, hold on. let me give Mike a thing here. Mike is always very prepared, but he does make quick decisions. So his last minute is getting it done like 3 weeks ago. And so he's got it. He's good, I'm sure.
Yeah, from last I heard, he's pretty set.
Yeah. Aaron is like me. He's playing the slow game.
Yeah.
And so
same vehicle for
ever.
Umpteen years, yeah.
Happens to be a dark green Land Cruiser. Coincidence?
Yeah.
I think
I
not.
think not, yeah.
Did you notice that I got that color?
You do know a dark green.
I know a dark green if it hits me in the
Real
face
upset.
for sure. And Steve made at least a little change, right? Just tires, nothing crazy.
Yeah. But also, and I mean, he's had the same.
He's had his for a long time too. Yeah.
But yeah, Tyson,
big change though.
Yeah.
Tyson though is like quietly big. I mean, it's not that you're exclaiming to the world that you're changing your vehicle up, because that's definitely
not exactly my style.
But Tyson also kind of quiet on the new rig front a little bit. But I mean, you're seeing it all the time, so I'm sure it's different for you.
I'm kind of up to date on all the happenings, but
Other Colin, huge change always with him too, and he, I don't know what his camp. He's got a tent on a canopy on his truck, and he's like 6 ways trying to get some sort of camper always.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's gonna happen with that topper camper. Is it? We're calling them toppers.
I mean, I guess you could call it a camper because like
If
but
you
I just feel like most people, when they hear camper, they think a slide in. But
well, he could put a slide-in camper on that truck and it'd be fine.
He could. Well, fine.
More fine than
Mike was, but fine.
Sorry, Mike.
Fine is a relative.
Yeah.
Very relative on that. But yeah, we're talking a topper.
Yeah.
That is not a slide-in. Yeah.
Okay. Well. Yeah. So and then that's it. Lauren's van's the same.
Mm-hmm.
Am I missing anybody? I'm definitely missing someone. Someone's mad now.
Well, I mean, Luke doesn't live here, so he's not going with us.
Count. And everybody realized he's got the ultimate overland rig during our episode. I liked his realization of that. Like, turns out everybody figured out how cool gladiators are.
Yeah, cool. I don't know about cool.
He didn't use the word cool.
Yeah,
in his defense.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call it cool. It's just that it is the perfect tool, perhaps.
Oh, okay.
Is what we could term that as, but it's not cool.
I'm trying to think of anything else you could correlate to that. Is that like a cheap Corvette is the best track day car kind of thing? Is it where you're like, yeah, well, if it's $20,000 and that's what you got to spend and you need the fastest thing around a track, I guess it's a Corvette. Is it a similar thing?
Well, I mean, I still wouldn't put a Corvette on that.
Oh my God.
I mean, I would say a Miata.
Yeah, but a Miata's cool, so it's okay.
Yeah. See, that's okay. So fair. So that is fair. Yeah, I'm two birds, one stoning that one.
Yeah.
Perfect track car, also cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, uncool, but perfect track car. Yeah, it might be.
It's
just a shitty Corvette. Yeah.
It's a C5 Corvette,
right.
especially.
Mm-hmm.
C6 a little bit less. C7s are still too expensive, but a C7 is still cheaper than like a lot of other things. So
yeah, fair. I mean, you could put. To hold true to our cheater chassis comment, you could put it as an S13.
Yeah.
Because at this point, S13s, they're really not that cool.
Yeah. I mean, I still think they're cool, but they're also kind of expensive. Like, not expensive compared to a Corvette, but to build an S13 to do what a Corvette with the same budget could do, like, it becomes this. I've seen this like in some drift stuff recently where people are like, the ultimate end of the LS swap is the C5 Corvette becoming affordable because now you can just put an angle kit on it and there you go. There's no more need. Now it's not as cool.
Mike is going to be on the marketplace looking for him as soon as
he's got an alert set.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm guaranteed.
This is this is gonna set it in stone for him now.
Yeah, he sold the truck too, so he's got cash burn and a hole in his pocket. I'm sure.
Yeah,
he's just.
That's
ready.
why he bought a project truck to flip. So
I forgot about that. Already, I've forgotten about that. By the time this airs,
it'll be sold.
It's either going to be sold or, like I said, it will be the current focus of his new build.
Well, and I believe I told you this. The second he sent that text, I was like near Tyson, and I said, "How long before you think he's going to start asking about what if he switches to that?"
Yeah, that's the way it is.
He's got a Rubicon he can't sell, so I mean he could always put the front axle out of that thing underneath the Frontier.
Don't put those words out into the world. It's just.
I mean, I'm sure he's thought of it.
I'm sure it would be cool. That's fine. They're fine. They're fine. Sorry, everybody that likes Frontiers and Xteras. They're fine. We had we were talking about that on the podcast before, where they make sense. Like there's a lot of you can get a lot of vehicle for the money. It's the same argument, right? It's the exact
no Toyota tax
thing. Yep, no Toyota tax.
Get basically the same
sort of stuff.
Package.
Yep, a lot of cool swappability things. Functionally, they're pretty good. Like as is, like they're fine.
And his doesn't have the fluid swapping issues because it's a manual.
Is that a thing? Like the automatic?
The automatic
transfer case.
Yeah, no, it's the automatic. And Luke will know better. I'm sure he'll yell at me for this, but it was something with the transmission cooler, like the inlet and outlet. Like there's something about them mixing fluids with the radiator or something like that.
Oh.
And so, but it's like the super easy fix where you just flip the in and out, I guess, or
Weird.
like something along those lines. Again, I'm not a professional here. I remember finding out about this as I looked into them years and years ago. But it's like a super simple fix to then resolve that problem. And I think that a lot of them have probably already had that done,
I would assume,
because it was like a known issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, his wouldn't have that issue because it's a manual.
It's good. But it is manual, which, you know.
I mean,
manual off-road.
Tyson loves a manual.
Yeah, Tyson does. A lot of people do. There's no,
I mean,
he's not the only one by a long shot. We had this conversation a while back. They're fine. The same thing I said last time was that driving the XJ, driving Tyson's, it makes a little more sense sometimes. Like, they do really well. It's nice to have it just in the gear. You can modulate the clutch to do things. Like, you get a lot of control over it. It's really cool. But if I'm going on a 7-hour day trip through the woods, not shifting isn't bad. It's not bad. But I'm sure it's fine to shift. So whatever. To each their own.
Well, and with enough gearing, it's not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I think my pet peeve comes from people putting, so I love a manual swap car a lot of times, but Holden and I were talking about this when we got his car last week or whatever. He said that he had seen people that had put, I don't know what transmission it was, but, manual swapped these Q45s. And I was like, that's kind of cool, I guess. And then I thought about it for a minute and I was like, maybe it's my age showing or something, but I wouldn't do it. It's too big of a car to be a drift car. You could do it. Well, it's possible. People do it. But it's just so big. It's heavy. There's not really any performance benefit to it. It's a style thing, and I love the style of it, and I get it. But, beyond that, that seems like a lot of work for, not a thing that I would want. Not a huge
payoff.
I would rather have in the Nissan world, let's just say, I would rather have an automatic Q45 and a crappy 350Z as a missile.
God.
That to me makes more sense, because then you have a car that performs better, it works better as a drift car, it doesn't look good at all, so you can ram it into stuff and who cares? It sounds terrible, but then you have a cool car to drive home. And so I don't know. I just don't. I think there's just a part of me that's just gotten to a point where there's certain things that I'm just like, no.
Yeah, I'm with you. It doesn't need to be a manual all of the things.
No, manual most of the things, sure.
Yeah, most of the things. Yeah.
But I'm not manual swapping an RV. That sounds stupid.
Yeah, I mean at that point, so the reason they're all automatics, because at that point, all these old fucks with their giant RVs, they'd probably have to have a CDL. Because they would end up with semi truck, those multi-lever,
those bus
transmissions.
All those pusher diesel ones are bus chassis. They're basically semi trucks.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just an insane thing to me. My grandfather, best man in the world, I loved him so much, but he had a terrible driving record, and
got a 55-foot RV.
Oh yeah, and not only that, a 40-foot RV, towed a tandem axle enclosed car trailer behind it everywhere, and he nearly killed a few people. He took out 2 of the storage doors on the side of it by hitting a stump trying to turn around.
Of course,
many things. He also, I remember vividly, he just let it get to its speed limiter on the freeway all the time. So 80 miles an hour or whatever, speed limiter, just set it and go. That was his MO.
Wow.
So, anyways, that's all to say, as much as I respect his skill as a driver, in his prime, he definitely shouldn't have been trusted with that thing.
Yeah.
In his late 70s.
And that's probably extremely common.
Yeah. And to take that one step further, as I think about this even more, just because it's just you and I'm going to touch on this for 1 second and we're going to move right off of it. We trust
you, me, and the internet. Yeah.
We trust people his age that I don't trust with an RV to run our country. So let's just, on all sides and all fronts.
Yep.
That's for some reason
Should
what
be an age limit as well as the age requirement.
God,
That's the thing.
It's just I don't even know if it should be a limit as much as just like societally we should be like, you know what, Gramps, maybe don't run this time. maybe let somebody in their 60s who's wise and less likely to die in office take care of this. But anyways, moving on.
Moving on.
Don't manual swap your RV. Should have a CDL to drive one. So does that mean Jesse should have a CDL with his giant Suburban?
No, I don't think that's quite big enough.
Just kidding. Okay, well,
that used to be a manual.
Oh yeah. That's good point. So he auto swapped it. Good job, Jesse. See, that's the thing I can get behind these days.
Auto swap.
Auto swap. All right. Well, so we have that upcoming trip. That's all sorted. None of us are ready except for Mike. I have something. Actually, before I do that.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to talk about is so it's March 28th. Toyota leaked. They teased the new 4Runner today. So I think the first reaction. So actually, I scrolled past it because it was 5:30 in the morning or whatever it was because of getting up super early, which I know other people get up that early, but I don't like getting up that early. I like getting up
I
a
don't
little
think
later
anybody
than
likes
that.
getting up that early. It's just sometimes we have to.
Yeah, so I'm scrolling through the internet and I see the Toyota post on Instagram. Didn't even think about it. I just scrolled past it. And then a while later I saw someone else say, so the new 4Runner is just the Land Cruiser, right? And I was like, oh, I already saw that picture. I scroll back to Toyota, look at it. All right, yeah. I guess it just kind of looks like the same body, maybe? Or, it's so vague, like it's hard to tell. But I thought that Aaron's thought was that it's going to be bigger potentially. So, I don't know. It can't be.
His comment was that the 4Runner was going to be a higher trim level than the Land Cruiser.
Okay, so that's
not necessarily that it is any different other than that.
Okay.
So that is why I sent that in the group text of, well, I guess Aaron was pretty on point. But hey, look at the bright side. The 4Runner actually changed this time.
Changed. It is something new.
It is something
Potentially.
different. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see. It could just be a joke, a ruse to get everyone's attention.
Just do a facelift on it, send it down
and
the
it's
road.
Just, turns out.
Go back one generation just to make it different.
They'll just be at the auto show and everybody's going to be excited, come out under the sheet, right? And then they'll pull the sheet off and it'll be the same
one.
Thing.
Look at this, though. We moved the badge.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble wrapping my head around it being more expensive than the Land Cruiser.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think a lot of people, I think a lot of enthusiasts will, because the Land Cruiser has always been the luxury SUV. It's always been the upper echelon. Yeah. And the 4Runner is just a SUV of the truck.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people are going to have a hard time with it. But the Joe Schmo off the street that's just looking for a new SUV, he's not going to know the difference. He's just going to be looking at, this is the higher trim level. I get it.
I guess we should also be thankful that it's not the RAV4, right? It could have easily just become something like that. Or
Highlander.
Exactly. Like they just took one of the other things and they were like, this is a 4Runner now.
Close enough.
Yeah. So it is still going to be presumably a body on frame, 4x4, and it'll be fine. I'm curious though to see what actually happens, and I'm sure we'll learn in the next couple months or whatever. It'll probably be pretty quick from here, because the Land Cruiser details came pretty quick. I think. Yeah. So I bet it'll be different drivetrain stuff, and obviously different, lights and stuff like that. It's not gonna, it's not going to be so square. Maybe it will be. I don't know. I think the Lexus is great looking, so maybe it looks like that. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, hard to say.
That reminds me though. Sorry, I talk away from the mic. So, our last episode, was that actually our last episode? Because I get this timeline messed up so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
it was.
And our last,
it was off air in our last episode.
What?
that you mentioned this.
No. Oh, no. Sorry. This differently.
Okay.
The episode where we went over this information, was that the last episode?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But off air, I brought
Off
this up.
air. Yeah.
Okay. So we had this heated discussion about mid-sized trucks.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't really heated. It was a decent discussion. But I came at it, and I'm trying to figure out how to word this. I think that there's a possibility that there's some biases thrown around, and I'm definitely
you think?
I'm definitely part of it, right? But I also think that we, for some reason as a group, sometimes those biases are like, we're really good about it. We're like progressive is the word I'd like to use about like being open to other things, or like, hearing other opinions or whatever. We overall do a pretty good job with that, I think. But what we do sometimes is get stuck in our ways, and we'll defend things just for the sake of defending them, or we'll fight for them just for the sake of fighting for them.
Right.
And I gave up at some point because I kind of had this feeling like the whatever it is, if the like Toyota thing became this like, it's fun to say Toyota sucks because it's super popular or whatever else. And it is what it is. It's fine. That is something that exists, and Toyota people do suck sometimes, just like every other brand of car people,
yeah.
right? But we kind of went off on this tangent, and I just gave up, right? And I went on a trip like the next 4 days later or something, and I just, for whatever reason, I went into the like Hudson News or whatever, and I bought a Car and Driver. And I was like, all right, good. It's got 15 cars against the clock. They did their lightning lap in this issue, which is really cool. They have the Le Mans studio, whatever it is. Oh, Garage 56 Camaro, which is like the NASCAR that they ran at Le Mans, which is really cool. It was fast. Got beat by a Subaru. Sorry. And just some cool stuff. But hidden in here, I'm going to flip this so everybody can hear it.
Probably not.
In here is a test, there it is, of the TRD Off-Road versus the Chevy Colorado ZR2. And I thought it was interesting. Shout out to Dan Edmonds for writing this really good article. And not because I think that the Toyota did well in this, but just because it's a good article. And I think automotive journalism like this is important. And I think people should all read these magazines. That's me on my high horse about automotive journalism. But
Save the magazine.
Save the magazines. Just save the magazines, please. There's a couple things we didn't talk about that I thought were super interesting about this. And there's some things that I know that I broken record this sometimes too, where I say that like, these opinions in these magazines or on these websites or whatever mean a lot because these people do this for a living. But also it's documented testing. And I think documented testing is important because it tells a real story. And it's not that it can't be wrong. It is possible for these facts to be wrong, but it's unlikely that they're always wrong, right? It's like, I know the news is the news and whatever, but like these people, their job is to report things that are pretty accurate usually.
Yeah, they are journalists in a specific nature, and they're there to get the actual information out to the general public.
Exactly. And there is opinion, and there are biases, because that is the way the world works. But I thought it was really interesting that they compared the TRD Off-Road to the ZR2. That was the first thing that got me off guard, because we talked about it, and I originally thought those two are in two different worlds. They shouldn't be the same thing. And, as you read through this article, there's a little bit of argument as to why they are in the same boat, and it's kind of interesting. And part of it is cost, right? Because the Toyota costs a little bit more actually it costs less as a base, ironically. It costs a little bit. The ZR2 is actually more expensive, which I was about to say it's not, but there's just some differences between them.
Well, there's a reason there's a reason that it's more, and it's because it's the highest trim package technically outside of the AEV, which is that you can't put that in as like a trim package. That's because that is it's
an add-on thing.
An aftermarket company that is partnered with them to then upgrade their upgraded car. So that's why. So it's where the TRD Off-Road That's not the highest
No.
trim package of that truck.
Yeah, there's a couple above it actually, which is
Yeah.
kind of interesting. So, anyways, the reason that they say that the two of these compete, one of the big reasons is that apparently the original TRD Tacoma, the like 97 or whatever, would have been modeled off of the S10 ZR2, which is really interesting. And the S10 ZR2, if you don't remember, I'm sure you do, Colin, but big tires, limited slip, I think it's G-Locker and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or GovLocker,
G-Lock, yeah.
G-Lock, okay, whatever.
That's fine.
Anyways, that
The grenade locker, as most people like to call it.
and Bilsteins, like that's it,
Yeah.
right? And so, but Toyota
And stickers.
yeah, don't forget the
Don't
stickers.
forget the stickers, man.
And it had 31s or 33s. They're big tires for the time.
I think it was just 31s.
Yeah, but they looked beefy.
They looked big on
it. Was
well,
awesome.
that generation of truck
Way
is
smaller.
a lot smaller than you think it is.
Yeah. So, anyways, the story goes in here that Toyota bought one of those trucks to basically model the TRD version of the Tacoma, which really was not in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
They put Bilsteins on it as well, and they put stickers on it, and maybe tires and a couple other things. I had like the white face gauges and stuff like that, but like it wasn't serious. But anyways, so they're kind of like there's some heritage between the two of them that fit. All this long-winded is to get to. There's a few things that we missed talking about. One of them is we talked about the ZR2 having a bunch more power, which it does, but it's also the same acceleration, which is ironic. And let me make sure I don't butcher my words.
Well, and I think that the
Considerably less gas mileage. Sorry.
right, but I think that the at least from my perspective, like when we were talking about new trucks, I went into that not really having a ton of information on the newest ZR2 and Tacoma stuff because as I've admitted many times, I'm not super up on like the newest ones. So my comments about having power were for the second gen Colorado versus the Tacoma, which that is a much bigger gap than this gap is on these two new ones.
That makes sense.
So that was where my comment came from there. They have narrowed the gap, but like you said, that's
which is crazy to me.
Something is amiss there, and maybe it's is there anything in there about gearing? Because it could be a gearing thing that made it slightly faster.
You know what's interesting though? The top speed is higher on the Tacoma too. So now here's one thing.
So transmission gearing then.
The Colorado definitely has bigger tires.
Obviously.
And it does less skid pad, which is probably partly because of the tires. And I'm sure the speed is too. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It is heavier too. It's about 500 pounds heavier. So that's not nothing. It was, to me, the thing that was interesting is how close they were. So like just quick things, 0 to 60, 6.8 versus 6.8. Quarter mile 15.2 to 15.2, top gear 30 to 50, 3.9 and 3.9. They're dead even on all those acceleration tests. The Tacoma's slightly higher skid pad Gs, which really doesn't matter in a truck, but it's 0.77 versus 0.72, which is probably not anything you'd ever know the difference between. But the combined 450 mile trip, 14 miles to the gallon in the Colorado, 19 in the Tacoma, neither very good. But surprising that there's that much of a difference when they're the same. As far as speed.
The same, but the tire size.
Yeah, there's definitely it's probably I bet I could find it, but it's definitely a 33 versus a not 33.
Yeah, probably a 30 or 31 maybe.
And so if you put that tire on the Tacoma, it would be slower. But again, it has 50 less horsepower, so of course it's slower. It'd weigh a little more, but not more than the Colorado. I don't know. It was an interesting thing. And so test to test, and I don't think that, let me be clear, that doesn't mean that the Tacoma is a better truck, especially for what we do or for what a potential, off-road buyer might do. But it was a lot closer than I thought. The only thing that made me really, I got through all this and they, full disclosure, they claimed that the Tacoma wins it by a little bit at the end because it's a comparison test. Whatever. I really don't care. I'm not cross-shopping these trucks right now. So
265, 70, 17.
Yeah. And then compared to a 315, 70.
A 285, 70.
Oh, interesting. So they're not, they're different, but not as much as I thought they'd be. I figured the Tacoma or the Colorado would have a wider tire than that. I thought it'd have a 315 on it. That's interesting. Either way. The thing I was getting at, the one test that the Colorado lost on, which I found super surprising, was that they put them on RTI ramps.
Mm-hmm.
And it did not outperform the Tacoma, which I thought was interesting. And the main reason for that is brought up in here and that we didn't talk about, I don't think at all,
Mm-hmm.
is that the Tacoma has multi-link coil rear suspension.
Yeah,
And
versus the
somehow
Leaf,
through all that bickering back and forth and talking about the Gladiator, which has multi-link coil, blah, 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 that's the thing. Like, that's the thing we kind of missed. And when we talked about this again after, just via text message, and not to blow up the spot here, because I know Jesse really wanted to talk about this, so sorry, Jesse, but the even more interesting thing is we started to talk about the Ranger,
Mm-hmm.
and the Ranger Raptor has, like, the next level of high-tech,
with the
cool
Watts link in it,
stuff. Yeah, it's got a Watts link. It's got Fox Live wires on it. Like, it's...
Which a lot of people will argue that the Watts isn't as good as, well, as certain link. Like,
I mean,
it's
sure,
not the best
it's probably
link
not-
system, honestly.
It's
'Cause
probably not as good as
Discovery
a
use
trailing
that
arm.
for, like, Discovery 1 and 2.
Mm.
They use the Watts link, and it's a little, or you know what? It might only be the Discovery 2, now that I'm thinking about it. But in any sense, they're not great.
Mm.
They're okay. It's better than other options, but not the best.
Well, it should hold everything straight. That's
Yes,
the idea,
I mean,
right?
and it does, and it holds things straight while providing additional flex side to side. But they're easier to find the limit point of than like a 3-link or a 4-link.
Got it. Okay.
Because there is literally a little short arm that's right in the middle of the diff, and it can run into its limits.
So the one on the Ranger, I was impressed. I'm never going to be able to find that picture.
Yeah, probably not.
Okay. Well, anyways, I was impressed with the layout.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have, the one thing they didn't do is like the F-150 Raptor has big trailing arms, which not necessarily the right thing to do for rock crawling or slow speed, but for high speed, big travel stuff, it's pretty great. Like, that is universally probably the right way to go, especially no manufacturer, I'm going to be proven wrong in 2 years, I'm sure, on this, but no manufacturer is going to put a set of coilovers and bypasses on the back of something like that. So it's a coil spring and a long shock, and it's going to be great because that's as good as you can get from the factory. So
yeah.
Anyways, all that is to say, whatever our preferences are what they are, but I think we missed a couple things that, which is fine. We're not automotive journalist people here. We're not the experts always.
Yeah.
We try to give as much information as we can the right way so that if people are listening, they don't start thinking that, one, that we're idiots, but two that we're
well, they're going to think that no matter what we do here. So,
but I don't want them to think that there's something that we're like spreading around that's actually not true, right? Or like they're going to find it out from their buddy who's like, "You're an idiot. What? Of course this does this." So, I wanted to clear that up because I found it interesting to have that follow up on it, especially so close to the original conversation. And it was interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, it is pretty wild. Like I pulled that article up online just so that I can kind of keep up with you. But
there's a physical copy. Right
I know,
here.
but
like,
you had it in your hand, so so I had it pulled up. That's what I was. So yeah, it is pretty crazy how close they are.
Yeah.
Even with the power discrepancy, which, boy, the
It's
ZR2 really puts Tacoma to shame in the torque numbers.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
Over 100 feet-pounds more torque.
Yeah.
Like that's
the interesting
that's a
thing,
big difference.
Like it from all, from their account, it doesn't seem like it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe you're on something. Maybe they've got a gearing thing that's
It's gotta
weird.
Be, it's got to be a transmission gearing thing. They're both 8 speeds.
It's not like, the other thing that's crazy though is it's not like, I could understand if, let's say it's got all the power numbers and it doesn't feel fast or it's not faster, but it's getting better mileage. Then you go, oh yeah, okay, there's some efficiency things going on there. That makes a lot of sense. But the fact that it's getting 5 miles to the gallon less on average, and it's the same speed with bigger tires and a silly bull bar, or not bull bar, but a whatever you call that roof rack thing, bed rack.
Okay, there you go.
Which
you got there.
Tacomas can come with if you option them
Mhm.
just right too.
Yep.
But I don't know. That was surprising.
Yeah, Safari.
They both
front
sound
bumper.
terrible, by the way.
Well, because it's a 4-cylinder.
Yeah, but
Both of
some
them.
4-cylinders sound okay. Those don't.
Yeah.
They're just so clackety. I think the Toyota's worse too. I watched a video and I was like, "Oh boy, it's not good."
Yeah, it is interesting. Both, inline 4, 16 valve, aluminum block and head.
High tech.
Yeah, direct fuel injection. Port and direct fuel injection on the Tacoma.
Dang, got that multi-port injection.
Mhm. Interesting. Yeah, and so there's no information in here as far as what their axle ratios are or what the transmission ratios are. And so that would be where I would think that the discrepancies would be. I mean, so what we got? We've got rolling start 50 to 60 is exactly the same. 50 or 30 to 50 also exactly the same.
It's crazy.
50 to 70, the Tacoma's a little quicker, not by much, but a little bit.
Nears makes no difference, as to quote Top Gear.
Yeah, and the ZR2 is gov limited to almost 10 miles an hour lower than the Tacoma. But yeah, like that is pretty crazy, like how close it is despite the difference in horsepower numbers. So that's the only thing that I can, horsepower and torque numbers, that I can think of is would absolutely be a gearing thing. And with the new ZR2s, I think depending on package, you can get up to 456s. Because that in the second gens you could do 456s or 411s in the year ranges after mine.
There's not a lot of great information on this,
I
unfortunately.
mean, everything's still so new. It's not going to be easy to dig up just right away. But
four-wheel drive ZR2. Oh, I might be onto something here.
Uh-oh.
Hang on. First gear, second gear. I don't care about that. Doesn't give the low range or the low range transfer case ratio. That's good. None of those stats. Okay, great.
Yeah.
I can
Dead end.
I'll do some looking, and I will come ready to give you these numbers. But you might be onto something. That could be it. But they are both 8 speeds, right? So it's not like the the Colorado's only got a 6-speed. And the Tacoma's got a 10-speed. Of course, it's better.
The one that
mileage,
would have a 6-speed would be the Tacoma, not the Colorado. Because
kidding,
Colorado already had an 8-speed.
Yeah, well, at least the Tacoma's got disc brakes now. I don't know. It's an interesting thing, and I think, like I said, I think we just we got so caught up in the actual argument and conversation that I didn't even think to look at any of that stuff. It's faster. Of course, it's faster. It's got 100 pound-feet of torque more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Now, would it be interesting to round a Gladiator into that too? And depending, on, I guess, a gas, a 3.6 gas one or whatever, and see?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe it'd be the same too. And you go, wow.
Well, and you couldn't even do the 3.6 because these are the 2 new model years. So you'd have to wait for the next Gladiator update, which Luke told us in the last episode that he was on when that was, which I believe he said it was this year or next year or something like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they do have, they've got the 2-liter turbo that nobody cares about. And I think that V6 and the regular Gladiator might get the same mileage as those trucks. That's insane. That's crazy.
Not surprising though.
I'm gonna look at one.
They're gonna hit their mark, and that's all they need to do is hit that mark.
Wow. Automatic Gladiators with the V6. So Rubicon
Mm-hmm.
is, hold on, sorry. So the worst one, the Mojave with the gas engine, 15 miles to the gallon on a highway route. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's better than the Colorado, but it's right there, which is very surprising. So, okay. Well, anyways, when you get into the actual numbers, it's kind of interesting. And so much, I think, of what we choose vehicles on is exactly the same thing that so many other people do, and that is because they think it's cool. And that's pretty much the
old
reason.
miles per gallon.
That's right.
That's the other part of it there.
Yeah, I'm getting much less miles per gallon than that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What else did I say I wanted to talk about? What else did we have here? I'm excited about the YouTube stuff that you've got coming out because I think that's going to be really interesting. Side note, Colin won't let me see it before it goes on YouTube, which is becoming a point of contention between us.
Because I need you to. We need the views, and I need everyone's views. So if I show it to you early, that potentially leads to you not going onto the YouTube and watching it.
Okay.
When we need the views. We need those clicks.
Yeah, well.
We need those clicks.
Everybody please watch our YouTube videos and click on them and like them and comment. We got a ton of comments on that on Ryan's podcast. That was awesome.
Yeah, the latest podcast that came out, yeah.
Yep, that is good. And so keep that going. I think he came with a crew of people that really just wanted to support him, and that's awesome because he's a cool guy. And I just wish that we had supporters like that too.
If we can get some supporters like that, man, we'd be looking pretty good. Because his following seems to be very into it and
very active.
And I appreciate that, and I'm glad. And shout out to him for being as into it as he is too. Because we thought, here we are, just our little rink-a-dink podcast, and inviting people that we think have cool stuff on here. And him being as into it as he has been is cool.
I think that's awesome.
It's kind of nice to.
I think I said that on the last intro, right? Like, it's just been really cool to have people come on here and just from like all different pieces of the kind of influencer scale or all different parts of it, and they've all just been great, and they've all been ready to talk, and just like we're hanging out outside of the shop. Like it's really cool. I really like that. So I really appreciate all that. The other thing that we were talking about off air that we didn't talk about is the Overland Africa adventure that we've both been keeping up on. You more than me, it turns out, but I did binge watch 2 episodes.
Okay.
They're
Which
long.
2? The first 2?
The first 2. They're long.
There's like 7 right now.
Oh no.
I think
I got to the 3rd one. I think I got through the 3rd one, but the first 2 I watched in succession, and they're long. But man, as much as we made an Instagram reel critiquing them, and I'm sure that we'll eventually get another one out of us because we'll say something, right?
Well, it is us that we're talking about here.
But they do make beautiful content. They do have such cool stuff. And I think you might be hate watching it, but I think we both watch it because it is kind of like this sounds so cheesy, the pinnacle of like American overland content.
We had an entire episode about this. Go back and listen to it if you haven't listened to it.
Did I say that?
No.
Okay, good.
But yes, they, as far as America goes, like they have an amazing budget. Yeah. They have an amazing skill level when it comes to the actual filmmaking portion.
Yep.
Now, is the actual content in there the most desirable sometimes? No. But visually,
it's amazing.
It is really, really great. And that's kind of why I, like you said, probably hate watch it, because it's like visually it's a sight to see.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Well, and they're also going to places, even if they're not doing anything wild like that we would like or enjoy, they're going to such cool places.
Oh yeah.
And
that part of it is extremely cool, because it's things that are like dream destination, dream expanse trips. Like that is kind of their repertoire, is like they They do the big stuff that like the people like us really, really aspire to be able to do someday.
Yeah. It's really cool. And they shoot it well. They make it a little more dramatic than it needs to be. But I was thinking about that as I was watching it, and I thought to myself, there was a story from, I don't remember who it was, a friend or an acquaintance that I had heard of, just a totally unrelated thing. And that thing made me think that people live in a different world than I do sometimes. They're afraid of a certain thing that I just wouldn't think about, right? Like, I would never go to this place because it's so scary. I would never walk across the street in this town because it's sketchy.
Right.
And I'm not saying that I'm brave. I think I'm naive more than brave most of the time. But like those things don't cross my mind. And it's a similar thing with X Overland, where they go to these places. And sometimes I go, yeah, definitely. You should be really careful because you just don't know. You don't speak the language. You don't know the rules. Absolutely. But other times I go, come on, guys. Like, could you just put the gas in the truck? Just put the gas in the truck and move on. I don't know what so they're making drama, I think, sometimes because it makes views, and they are crafting a story that they're really good at. But then other times I think that there's definitely some things where because whether it's because they have a group of people that they have to be responsible for and kids and all these things, are being extra cautious in certain places. I get it. It makes sense. But it's still just not the world that I live in so much. I'm a little bit more, I guess, fly by the seat of my pants.
Which, and again, that comes back to the size and scope of what they are doing versus typically what we are doing. They don't have that freedom per se to be fly by the seat of their pants because there are too many variables when it comes to a trip like the ones that they do.
Yeah.
I mean, some of their earlier videos, so we will say that they've always been this way.
Yeah. But now it's paying off.
But now it makes more sense. But but also because they've always had that attitude, it probably has paid off for them.
Yeah.
Because they started with the attitude of everything is extremely serious and and keeping ducks in a row and things like that.
Yeah.
Where for us, our group, I can't even imagine the difficulties that we would inherit with the change of the aspect of flying by the seat of our pants for most of our stuff. I mean, I do plenty of planning, but it is still not the type of planning that goes into those guys' trips.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, and there is definitely that, and you're onto something there, right? Like the way that so I would assume, not knowing these people from anybody else, right? I would assume that the vision was always that they would do something like this.
Grandiose scale.
Yep,
yeah.
Exactly. So when they started getting serious about it, because it's not like the first things we saw on YouTube were their first camp trips, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Like they've been doing it for a while. And once they started to do that, I'm sure that Clay and his wife and their team decided, I know I hate to say team, but it is what it is. That's what they use. It's like, never mind. I was just watching
It's just one of those things.
Yeah, it's just one of those terms. God, I can't believe I used it. Anyways, their team, they set these expectations because they hoped that they could use it in South Africa,
Yes,
Alaska,
South America,
whatever,
yeah.
And so good for them. Whatever, that's fine. I think that if we had to, we could be whipped into line and we could make it happen. It'd be tough.
Yeah.
But I'd also I think it would be so fun to watch half of the people that we go with go through a border crossing like that, because I think it'd be fun.
Yeah.
They'd just be hilarious.
Just send them in blind and see what happens.
Someone's getting detained. There's just no doubt in my mind that someone is getting detained.